Hi, Dr. Karen Can here. Welcome to another edition of the Spiritual Medicine Digest. And first, some really fun, happy news, at least happy news for me. So, I recently got published in the journal for the New York State Academy of Family Physicians. Now, what's very fascinating, of course, is that I don't really do regular family medicine anymore. As most of you know that are watching these, I mostly do spiritual and energy medicine. But interestingly, the New York State Academy was asking for author submissions for adolescent health. And as many of you know, indigo children and starseed children are very dear to my heart. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to take a crack at it and see if they are even a little bit open to what I have to say. So I was asked to submit, I think it was 800 word or something article, which is really hard to fit everything I wanted to say in 800 words, so I had to cut it really short. But it finally got published, and we'll give you the link down below to the actual PDF. You can download and read it. So I made it into the to views section of the journal, which is on adolescent depression. Now, my article is about, how to get adolescents less stressed and less moody. So they kind of lumped it in with depression. So it was fascinating. They had my article right next to the mainstream article. And so the other article is talking about, your traditional depression assessment, the back inventory, the medications you could use, and, other interventions, things like that. And I was talking about, some examples from my life and my patients about, kids that have been labeled ADD or having depressive issues, but they were actually just sensitives. And these sensitives really needed whole foods, first of all, because they were so sensitive to like dyes and GMO foods and things like that. And also that they're also sensitive to other negative energies such as electromagnetic radiation, for one. And so I had suggested that these kids shut off their cell phones or minimize their use. I talked about earthing and getting out in nature, and about doing a whole food diet. And of course they wanted annotations in the bibliography about, what kind of evidence is there for that? So it was so fun for me to actually be able to give them some data on cortisol levels, thanks to my friends over at earthing.com. That's also in my book, The Guide to Healing Chronic Pain, that whole section on earthing. So it's great for them to see actual data on cortisol levels and how cortisol levels start to come back to normal levels and balance when you spend time outside in nature, earthing your skin to Mother Earth. And also some of the evidence that's out there about decreased sperm counts with adolescents and cell phone use. So it was really great to be able to actually, write this article. So check it out. It's very, very short, but making it in mainstream, that is a really big deal. So yay! Okay, so what's really interesting this week? Well, it's been a kind of a tough week in many ways. There has been definitely what I would call retaliation. Now, this is not something for you to be scared about, just to be aware of. And I think I've corrected some of these issues, at least with my Ascension 1 and 2 tools. So what's happening is that some of the healing work that we're doing now is very, very powerful. And because because we're doing this convergence with our alternate selves, being the we are all one phenomenon, and assuming we are converging in a appropriate way, that is dimensionally and not physically or energetically, and you can have all sorts of symptoms if you're doing that. So what happens is that on the other side, on the, in the other multiverses, when your alternate selves that you're converging with, especially if you're not converging dimensionally with them, when they are automatically being healed through the healing work you're doing in this timeline, or with the Ascension tools, or with sessions, or however you're doing it, if you are clearing negative energy such as entities or hidden entities, darkness of the dark, things like that, there was some backlash from that. Now, they, for the most part, could not attack you here, and in fact, they really didn't know where the healing energy was coming from, except that the person they were focused on in that timeline was getting better and was elevating their light, and that they can sense. So think of it. You're in, the alternate you is in another timeline, another universe, that alternate you starts to heal. You know, the autoimmunity starts to heal, the negative energy starts to, you know, the vows, the contract starts erasing, that kind of thing. The entities that are attacking that person or is focused on that person, if they are a target, now gets wind of, wait a second, something's going on here. We don't know where this is coming from, but this ain't cool. You know, this person's light is elevating. We got to stop them. So they will start retaliating to that person, that version of you in the multiverse. Now, this is not very common, so don't think all of you, oh my gosh, that's me, that's me, it's me. It's not, it probably isn't you, okay? This is a very small percentage of people, less than 10%, that is experiencing these retaliations. And oftentimes these are some of my light warriors who are some of the highest vibrational folks that I work with, the starseeds, the earth angels, the indigos, that kind of thing. So because their alternate timelines are, some of them are being, you know, in this retaliation, they start to feel bad in this timeline because we're doing the convergence, and they can empathize and feel their alternate timelines, and they can feel the entities attacking. It feels just like it is when they are here in our timeline because of the convergence. And you can even see them sometimes, like, oh my gosh, my house is littered with entities. Just remember, okay, sometimes you are seeing through the eyes of your alternate self, and it's not actually happening in this timeline. Not to say that you can't have stuff happen. So for example, you know, you might have electronics issues, and the electronics issues, you're thinking it's something that you got to clear in the electronics. So you're clearing, it's not working. And you're like, what's going on? I tried everything to clear my electronics. And if you test the light score of your electronics and the internet and the phone lines and everything connected to it, it's all like 95 to 100%. So you're like, what gives? You know, you've maybe already downloaded the buffer to your electronics that we show you how to do in the Light Warrior boot camp, so that your high vibrational energy, assuming that you are high vibrational, is not jamming your electronics. You've already done that, so that's not it. Okay, so what can happen is your alternate self in another timeline may have their issues with the entities. You feel that somehow translates energetically through you to jam your electronics. I know it sounds very complicated, but we've had a couple of cases of this where it was a little bit difficult to figure out where this interference was coming from, because it wasn't the usual places. Now, of course, the usual places includes nowadays that if you have issues with your electronics, that sometimes, especially if you're one of my light warriors, your place is clean, and your house is clean, your electronics are clean, there's nothing wrong with it. But because of who you are and what your service and your mission is, you actually might notice a low light score that comes from the company that delivers your electricity or your internet, or the people that come put it together in your house. So you may have to extend those universal shields to clear and clean all of them as well. And if source allows, those will be clear as well. And then voila, you get a higher light score, and voila, your computer starts working. This actually happened to James the other day. He had a brand new computer, really nice one, $1,000, you know, laptop. And the screen wouldn't work, right? So we're after about 20 minutes trying to figure out how to do it. I'm like, you know what? I'm just asking God what the heck is going on. So we found out that there was an extraterrestrial interference on a YouTube channel that he was watching earlier, and being empathetic and so on and so forth, that the computer was basically just telling us, hey, there's somebody out there that has an issue that maybe you might want to deal with or help or support, you know. So after we found that out, we went ahead and we did clear that dimensional issue from that YouTube channel, from that YouTube video. It's a skateboarding video, interestingly. Pretty harmless, but it is what it is. And of course, after we did that, we, you know, powered the computer back up again, and it worked. So what can I say? It just, you know, we do the clearing, it works, we figure it out. So that comes to another thing I wanted to share with you. Why is it that some people have to know so much. It could be an imbalance. So it could be imbalanced negative beliefs that you hold that cause you to have to know all the gory details of everything before it'll clear, right? Why not let the God team do the work, right? Why not just ask your God team to do the work if you don't really need to know? Now, more and more that is happening. I noticed this week that things were clearing much faster. Layers and layers and layers of things were healing with TOLPAKAN healing without actually having to know what the layers were that had to heal. We didn't have to know if it was a negative belief. We didn't know if it was a vow. We didn't have to know if it was something in the body code. No, nothing. A lot of it just cleared on its own and very quickly, and the light scores just elevated very, very quickly. Sometimes I get even a little frustrated because I'm like, hey, you know, some of my other healer friends, they're just like, let go, let God, right? Just let God do all this thing. And then, so when people come to me and they're frustrated, like, I don't understand. I thought I was getting better. Now I'm not. What's going on? I end up playing kind of detective or spiritual scientist to figure things out for them. And it's not that they have to learn a lot more. It's just that sometimes I learn a lot more new stuff from their experiences. Again, this is a high population of very, very challenging, sometimes cases of, star seeds, hybrids, walk-ins, been sick for many years, and, lots of issues, entity issues over decades that we're trying to clear in a session, right? Or maybe 2 sessions. So it can be challenging. And what I think I've realized is that when I asked Source today, okay, why is it that I end up having to figure this stuff out? Now, I like it. That's one issue. Maybe that's just my personality. I like to figure things out. Maybe I don't have to figure things out. But what I got from Source was that my doing mission, we do this with the Light Warrior VIP group. We talk about our being mission, our doing missions, and our soul's mission. In my mission, my doing part of my mission is about teaching. And so I asked who, what, when, where, why, and I got the main issue is a why. So for those people that are having difficulty and challenges, that have been through, tons and tons of healing, tons and tons of doctors. I had one person recently been through 100 doctors, literally 100 doctors, tons of different healing and aren't getting answers. I guess what happens is somebody is assigned to give the answers. So that is me. That Source is, that is, at least currently, my doing role in the soul's mission is to help people understand the why. Sometimes when they do understand the why, then they have a sense of peace because they realize there's nothing they've been doing that's wrong. If you find out that, you think you're inundated with entities or something like that, and all it is, you're a walk-in and your walk-out soul has issues it hasn't resolved that you need to resolve. And once you resolve them, you no longer feel like you're inundated with entities because you just had really 2 people talking to you, like things like that. And sometimes that creates a lot more peace, just understanding, oh, okay, my alternate self was having autoimmunity, and now that we're healing the alternate self in a blink of an eye, and all those layers are resolving, wow, my knee pain is not bad anymore. So it's not necessarily the sugar, or it's not necessarily, me overusing it or not taking the right supplement. It's just us doing the convergence. And then once that issue is dealt with, it's no longer a problem. So that's the wonderful thing, is when you do, for whatever reason, have to figure things out, and you figure things out quickly, just like the electronics problem, it can kind of just poof, heal right away. And that's really, really fun. So, a couple other really cool things. The retaliation issue, I have hopefully dealt with it as best as we can, and we'll continue upgrading the Ascension 1 and 2s with the frequencies needed. So what I did was I asked Source to make the Ascension 1s and 2s and all the other MP3s that I make, and from now on in the future, actually invisible to entities. Sorry for the dog barking. So the entities can no longer actually detect the Ascension 1 or 2 energies. So not until they're already healed. So in that way, it'll minimize the retaliation on the other side in your multiverse lives. It is still better to use the Ascension 1 and 2 or not. There was a case of someone whose baby was crying because the Ascension 1 was playing and the baby was seeing ghosts. And absolutely, we tested, the baby was seeing ghosts. But the reason he was seeing ghosts because the Ascension 1 was playing was because the alternate self was actually being depossessed of entities. Of course, this was a baby, but the alternate self had entities. And the best thing for that was to let that run its course. So let the healing complete for the other side. So people are like, oh, is it opening bad portals and things like that? And it wasn't. We had some other healers check it just to make sure. So sometimes you feel worse before you feel better because things are coming into the light. So we've minimized the retaliation now that they can't really detect us. The other thing we've done as well is the clearing of vortices of light. We'll actually be doing a clearing for you for this, specifically from heartache to joy. I believe, let me look at the calendar, April 20th. So mark that down. I believe it's going to be 8 p.m. Eastern. I should actually check that before I tell you that, guys. But anyway, so it's April 20th. I believe it's around either 7:30 or 8 p.m. at night Eastern time, and it'll be a live Facebook one. Now, of course, you need to be part of the From Heartache to Joy VIP Facebook page in order to do this. All these clearings are already in Ascension 1 and 2, but we're going to specifically do it for the folks on the From Heartache to Joy VIP page. So if you are part of that, please join us so we can get these clearing vortices to automatically clear entities in multiple areas of your life, including your sleep realms. There's been some feedback that, from one person, and more than one person said that once I start doing something good for myself, and this is a particular person that said to me today that, finally they feel like they are spiritually ready to do their journey, and they've been very sick for very long. But the minute they start doing something well, it's like they feel immediately worse, like they're being sabotaged. Now, in this particular case, it was true, but it was a non-specific sabotage, meaning that these entities weren't necessarily targeting him, but these entities were actually darkness of the dark entities that were permeating the fabric of the multiverse, so to speak, and their job was to sense shifts in the multiverse. So if there was an area in this humongous multiverse that suddenly started becoming more light, they would just automatically just knee-jerk resist that, and they didn't care who you were. It's like, okay, we're just going to resist it. Put more darkness over there. And so this was very interesting. So we had to remove them, of course, and hopefully that person won't be feeling that kind of resistance anymore. But it is possible to get that kind of kickback without necessarily being a target. And speaking of targets, there is apparently some sort of list or target list of the most wanted light people on the entity's target list. So guess what? We dissolved those lists. Yes, we destroyed those lists. And secret lists, whatever. There may be more lists they try to create, and then we just keep dissolving them and targeting. So there was no question they were targeting me, because as a light worker, many light workers are targeted, not because we did anything wrong, but because we're doing everything right. And I am not allowed to be invisible to entities in this timeline. So I said, okay, take me off the target list and take everybody else that I take care of, including my family and friends and, all that kind of stuff. And it was really interesting. Once I was erased off the target list, all of them were erased off the target list too. So it was like they were targeted because, if they could distract me or do something, whatever, then they would, the entities would actually be able to or try to thwart me. So we actually dissolved those lists, and we will continue monitoring the situation. We, as in me and the angelic force, will continue monitoring the situation. I got to tell you, after doing that, it felt like the next day it was like this peace was like washed over me. Of course, they have other antics that, they keep going, but in other ways. But it was amazing, that day of peace. It was great. It's like, yay, being off the list is to autumn. And apparently I asked, where am I on the list of most wanted in this world? And I didn't make top 10, but I made the top 20. I was like 18 or 19, something like that, of the entities most wanted. Isn't that funny? Okay, we can laugh about this stuff now. All right, so a couple things I want to share with you before we end today is that we are going to be interviewing author Dr. John Douillard on his book, Eat Wheat. Now, you may have remembered some of our previous radio shows on, what's with wheat, the show, talking about how dangerous it is to eat wheat these days. Well, here is an alternate view, but actually complementary view to some of the books you've been reading, like maybe Grain Brain and, things like that. Dr. Perlmutter's book. But Dr. John Douillard tells us how wheat can be helpful for us and what kinds of wheat to eat. And interestingly, really interesting part about the brain lymphatics. So remember, you might have remembered that we were talking about headaches sometimes with the Ascension, that the brain lymphatics get backed up. So I'm actually going to be asking him questions about the brain lymphatics because I don't know very much about it. So if you don't have the Eat Wheat book, check it out. I think it's eatwheat.lifespa.com, but we'll actually be doing the radio show Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern, so you can be on it live and ask your questions of Dr. Douillard either on the chat or call in live. And one last thing I want to leave you with, which is another really, really, really cool thing, is that I recently got test results back from a patient with some mild, let's just say mild heart disease, and I finally got results from the cardiologist from different years of repeat testing, and I've been asking for these for ages, but finally we got copies of them. Not the doctor's fault, but the patient kept forgetting to ask the doctor. So anyway, we finally got these results. And so I'm looking at them, and I wasn't looking at the dates. And finally, when I was looking at the results and realized there was a change, And at first, my automatic assumption was, oh, this got worse. His heart issues got worse. But then when I looked at the date, I realized that the one I was looking at that I thought was worse was the one 2 years ago. The one that was better was the one most recently done. So in a span of 2 years for this elderly person, the heart muscle strength increased. The ejection fraction went from 65% to 70%. The dilated left atrium, which causes things like atrial fibrillation, things like that, that went back to normal size. Now, when do you hear that, right? Most doctors will say, oh, you've got a dilated left atrium. You're going to have to be on anticoagulants for the rest of your life. You've got atrial fibrillation. This person, it reversed. This person actually had an aortic aneurysm too. They don't really do anything for that for now because it wasn't dangerous, but that actually shrunk, which is a good thing. And also that person had calcifications around one of their heart valves. And guess what? Calcification is gone. So is that cool or what? I just want you to really let that sink in. The reversal of even someone as old as this person, the reversal of heart disease. And I actually took this person off medication. I did a little arm twisting, but, finally got him off some of these dangerous medications he was on because he was having all sorts of side effects and problems and almost begged, please stop these medications, which he did. And he's definitely a lot healthier after stopping them. So is that cool or cool? Yeah, totally awesome. So I want to share with you some really positive news as well. So I look very, very forward to hopefully being with you on the show on Monday. And remember, just, keep playing your Ascension tools, Ascension 1 and 2, keep clearing yourself, your loved ones. There is, even though there seems to be a lot of entity interference right now, remember, we are actually able to feel it from multiverses, right? So it feels like it's more, but when I talk to God's source, I am assured that 97% has decreased since October, the numbers of entities. So that is a pretty huge decrease in entities. The smart ones, they still are doing their thing, but every one of you who's doing this work, who's being committed, even if healing is difficult, even if healing is painful sometimes, that is making a huge difference in the whole world. So keep it up. You're doing awesome, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye for now.